Hey guys, Koizi here. Like I said in the previous video, 2020 sucked. From the celebrity deaths to COVID to Donald Trump to all the drama I put up through, both personally and in the internet. But we did talk about something good about last year, and that is the best animated films it gave us. Now we're talking about the animated films that aren't so great. These are movies that are almost as bad as the year itself. Here are the top 5 worst animated films of 2020.
The universe is against me, and no one here defends me. Everyone pretends me, and the whole universe is against me.
Just because we're starting the worst list with this film doesn't mean it's bad. In this case, it's just okay. The movie I'm talking about is from Netflix, and it's called Animal Crackers. The flaws with this film is that the story is very predictable, and the characters are not that well developed. It's that generic premise where this guy turns into an animal and has to find a way to go back to normal, and it comes with every cliché that you can find in this type of movie. It doesn't help that it's being told with a cast of bland tropes like the average Joe protagonist that comes across the supernatural, the villain that wants the magic items for power, the supportive deuteragonist that sticks by his side, and the snarky comic relief that makes some funny wisecracks. That's where the negatives do end. Again, just because it's in the worst list doesn't mean it's bad. When it comes to the positives, the third act is awesome and action-packed, the animation is good enough for what it is, and can have its enjoyable moments, and the voice acting is amazing, which highlights the neat casting like Joe Krasinski, Danny DeVito, Gilbert Gottfried, Patrick Warburton, Raven Simone, etc. Plus, thanks to the scorecard I gave to this movie, I'm now friends with one of the directors. Animal Crackers isn't a bad movie, it's just that I've seen better animated movies in 2020, and the entire best list proves that.
The whole universe is against me.
Looks like we're sticking to Netflix with this one. We're not just now getting to the bad stuff, but we're also talking unpopular opinions. In this case, I hate the Willoughbys. Don't get me wrong. There is stuff that I like from this film. The twist ending is good, the message is rare for an animated film, Alessia Cara's performance is spectacular, and the animation is creative for the most part. But here's the thing. Those aspects won't save everything else from screaming generic kids flick right in your face. There have been a lot of generic animated features before, but it's rare for an animated feature to feel generic in every single way. The story is super predictable and mean-spirited, the humor never lands, the characters are annoying one-note gags, and even the backgrounds look painfully average like a mansion, a city, and a mountain. The only place that looks interesting is the candy factory. This movie may feel like a children's book, but it doesn't feel like a good children's book at that. It feels like those children's books that you'd rather not finish and throw away. It's not the worst animated film out there, but it's certainly an overrated one. I'd rather watch Captain Underpants. Now that feels like a living children's book.
The whole universe is against me.
I might as well jump from one overrated movie to another, but we're also getting out of books and going into original ideas, or so we thought. This is Pixar's other 2020 movie, Inward. Unlike Soul, which blew everyone's expectations and was the best animated film of the year, Inward was a massive disappointment and was one of the worst animated films of the year. The story is super predictable from top to bottom, and not at all Pixar quality. We've seen this journey in numerous animated features before this, and it's badly executed here. The humor doesn't make it better by having no style of comedy whatsoever. The main two brothers are the exact same straight man goofball duo we've seen in tons of movies, and there's nothing unique about them. The other characters are highly forgettable, due to only having one trait each. The animation may be nice and colorful at times, but doesn't change that it doesn't look like a Pixar film, but looks more like something straight out of Hotel Transylvania or Illumination. The voice acting might be the saving grace in this film, since everyone did give their all in their performances, but the materials they were given were so weak and awful. Among all Pixar flicks, this is easily the worst one. That's right, it's worse than Cars 2 and Brave, and that's saying something regarding a recent movie that has so much anticipation and potential, but all Onward did is cast a spell to waste it.
The whole universe is against me.
As overrated as Willoughbys and Inward are, I do value originality more than franchises. And with this franchise, I was way too nice to its second installment with that scorecard. Oh boy, does this not hold up to 2021. I didn't know what to expect with a sequel to The Croods, since I only find that movie just okay. But I find Trolls just okay as well, and their comeback was strong and entertaining. This, on the other hand, decided to go the opposite route. The story is literally a copy of the movie's predecessor. It's the same freaking movie. That's literally the same plot, and we know exactly what's gonna happen next when watching it. Except here, they added stupider things like weaker jokes, unnecessary subplots, and downgrading the characters to unlikable tropes. Don't get me wrong, the animation is gorgeous, even though it's a bit cartoony for the Chris Sanders style. And the voice acting is pretty good. Except for Leslie Mann, who did the worst performance in the movie. I never heard voice acting this bad in a DreamWorks movie since Turbo, and that came out the same year as this movie's predecessor. But still, the animation and voice acting are good, but unlike Animal Crackers, they didn't save the awful writing, cause the plagiaristic story and derailed characters are so bad that it outshines the fantastic animation and enjoyable performances. I did used to like this movie when I first watched it, but the more I think about it, the more I hate it, so here it is at number 2 worst. At least I'm not calling it the worst animated film of the year, but this is still a letdown. And the number 1 worst animated film of 2020 is the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run. Now, I know what you're thinking.
Quasi, this movie's not released in America yet.
Well, excuse me, nincompoops. It did get on Netflix last year in November 5th internationally, and I pirated it on Kiss Cartoon, while everyone else, in America mind you, used VPNs to watch this film on Netflix. Plus, it's on the list of American films of 2020, not 2021, so it counts as a 2020 movie, no matter where it's released. So, that's what's wrong with SpongeBob's third cinematic adventure. Almost everything. The story didn't just rip off one of its predecessors, but it rips off other animated features such as Finding Nemo, Looney Tunes Back in Action, the Lego Movie, just to name a few. The writing here takes lazy to a whole new level, where the journey is automatically predictable from top to bottom, and the humor doesn't make it better, since the movie's not as funny as the first two. The animation is good for the most part, but not as good as the Peanuts movie or Captain Underpants. Those movies have 2.5D animation for a reason, to capture the spirit of their source material. But this movie doesn't even feel like a SpongeBob episode or a movie worthy of the SpongeBob brand, so what's the point of the stylistic CG animation? This film could just stick to the show's hand-drawn animation or have standard CG and nothing will change. The characters may stay as themselves, but it's obvious that they're not as lovable as before, due to how terrible the writing is, resulting these bikini bottomites to be either wasted or poorly portrayed. This movie is almost the same quality as the previous 3 movies in the worst list, but there's something that makes this the number 1 worst, and that is the fact that this is coming from Paramount Animation, a highly unoriginal studio that produced nothing but sequels like Sponge Out of Water and Sherlock Gnomes, and failures like Wonder Park, and this movie is both of them. It's a cash-grabbing sequel like Sherlock, and a bomb like Wonder Park. Simple as that. This is how the studio's business has literally started, and it's going to literally finish like that if Rumble turns out to be one more bomb. This is the movie that made SpongeBob so close to becoming the new Hotel Transylvania or Ice Age. And if that doesn't make Sponge on the Run the #1 worst animated film of 2020, I don't know what does. And those are my picks for the top 5 worst animated films that came out last year. Since 2020 was one of the worst years in history, and it had only 10 animated features, let's hope that this year, aka 2021, can give this new decade a chance of redemption and pick up the slack with a lot more animated features, including a Disney animated feature that I'm iffy about, a 20th century animated feature that I'm hyped about, a debut of a new animation studio that I'm curious about, a movie that's gonna suck big time #1, a sequel that doesn't need to exist, a Sony animated musical that does need to exist, a Pixar movie that's Ponyo 2.0, a sequel that I don't know if I want, a sequel that I definitely want, a movie that's gonna suck big time #2, a movie that has potential to be like Teen Titans Go to the Movies, a sequel that needs to improve from its predecessor, a My Little Pony movie that won't be as good as Lionsgate's, a movie that's gonna suck big time #3, a Disney animated feature that I'm hyped about, and a sequel that doesn't need to exist either. Tell me what you think of this video in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Koizi, signing out.